What's up, everybody? I'm Clayton. You're listening to Ages of Fear podcast number 40, Leatherface. The budget for the film was $500,000. The movie grossed $1.5 million, giving it a net gain of $1 million. Directed by Alexandre Bastillo and Julian Murray. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing well wherever you are out there. I want to say a special thank you to all my new subscribers. Thank you very much for kicking it with me here in Ages of Fear. I appreciate it. And if you're new to my channel, don't forget to smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, so you too get in on all the fun and excitement. A few recommendations for you freaks. Let me recommend Movies and Beyond with Michael. Michael's a good dude. We've had him on Ages of Fear multiple times. Go check out Movies and Beyond. Smash that like button. Subscribe to Michael's awesome channel. You can also be a member now of Movies and Beyond. I would highly recommend doing that as well, so you get all the perks and bonuses that come with it. Also, The Bearded Entertainment with Mr. Eric. Go check out his awesome channel as well. Another badass channel with great content. So hit that like button, subscribe to Eric's channel, The Bearded Entertainment. And then Brian Lomax, a good dude. He's got a movie channel. He reviews all sorts of movies. He does ranking videos, live streams, Q&As. He does everything. So go check out Brian's awesome channel as well. Like, subscribe, you know the deal. All right, we are still working through TCM, Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. We're getting to the end. We got one more movie after this. And then, as always, I plan to do a ranking video of all the Texas Chainsaw movies. It's 50 years of Texas, baby. So that's why we're doing this, celebrating Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 50 years of this franchise. That's a huge milestone. And quite frankly, a lot of, franchises out there don't make it to 50 years and still have legs on them. TCM does. There's still a large fan base of TCM fans out there. I do like some of these movies. I'm not a diehard TCM fan. This isn't my favorite franchise. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a Halloween guy. Michael's my boy. But there are certainly a few bangers in this franchise. So we're getting close to the end. We got Leatherface today, and then hopefully I plan on knocking out the last one early next week, and then ranking video coming next week as well. So stay tuned for all those videos. That being said, let's talk about some Leatherface. So this is actually the second title, TCM title, with Leatherface in it. The third edition in this franchise was also called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 Leatherface. But this one is front and center. This is just Leatherface. So I'm going to give my thoughts, my opinion on this movie, kind of break it down, share some of the, the positives and negatives with this movie. As always, just as a disclaimer and a reminder, this is just my opinion on this movie. There's no need to be upset or offended by anything that I say. You are more than entitled to your opinion. I would love to hear your opinion in the comment section. All I ask that you be respectful to my opinion, and I will be respectful to yours. All right, so let's get into Leatherface. Starting with the positives, I will say I do think that this movie, of all of the TCM movies, is probably the most misunderstood. I have heard a lot of people criticize this movie for being something that it's not, and for doing something that it wasn't necessarily trying to do. So, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but first, I want to just start off by addressing some of the things that I did really like about this movie. One of those stronger positives for me is the acting. I do think the acting was pretty good here in this movie across the board. I thought it's mostly a young group of actors, not a whole lot of experience with the main cast here, but I think that they turned in pretty solid performances. The kid who plays Leatherface, Jackson, Sam Stryker, or Sam Strike, something like that. I thought he does a good job in his role as Jackson slash Leatherface. I thought he does a good job. Lizzie, Elizabeth, the girl who plays Elizabeth in the movie, I thought she does a fine job. Sheriff Hartman, played by Stephen Dorff, turns in a great performance. And then, of course, Lily Taylor playing Verna Sawyer is brilliant as well. So, and even like the kid playing Ike and his girlfriend, I thought they were good. So the acting across the board here, I think is actually pretty good. So, a very believable performance across the board. I never got the feeling that any of these actors were playing their performance or playing their character sharp. I didn't feel that they were overdoing it. I didn't think any of them were underdoing it and not bringing enough, charisma or energy to their characters. I thought each of them fit right in the pocket playing their characters. So I thought the acting was good across the board. I really did. So that's one of the stronger positives for me was the acting. I love the tone of this movie, a very kind of dark, grim tone to it, which I enjoy. I've said it I think a couple times now in this TCM franchise. I think a darker, grim tone is the proper tone for a Texas movie. I think that's the tone you should be striving to get in a TCM movie, and I think this one gets that really well. Very dark movie, very grim, and I think it sets a really good tone for the movie. I thought the pacing was good. I think this movie is structured really well as far as the setting up each of the three acts of the film. I thought it's pasted well. It goes through the story at a pretty good pace. I don't think we spend too long of time on any one scene or with any one character. I think it moves at a good rate, at a good pace in this movie. So I do think the pacing was pretty good as well. The kills were good. We get some gnarly kills in this one too. This one is competing with the beginning for most, visceral, bloody Texas movie. There, a lot of pretty graphic content and kills in this movie. So, enjoy that. I think that's, that enhances these type of movies, where the blood and the gore is kind of it's the bulk of the movie. It's what the movie is built on, these very visceral kind of murders and butchers that have happened to these victims. So I did enjoy that. I thought that they definitely brought some pretty gnarly RIPs in this movie. So that was a positive for me. Now I want to talk about the writing in this movie. And this is, I think, where the misconception comes into play. I think a lot of people, when they watch this movie, they're expecting a typical Texas movie with the Sawyer family. You know, we have the Sawyer family in this movie, and I think a lot of people are expecting that same type of story of Leatherface, and the same type of Leatherface that we've gotten from prior Texas movies in this one. So they're when they're watching Bud, they expect Bud to be Leatherface. They're expecting Bud to be that character because he looks like the obvious choice, right? He looks like the obvious person that would be Leatherface. So when he gets killed and we find out that he obviously isn't Leatherface, a lot of people are let down by that, and a lot of people are turned off of the film because of that. But I would argue that I don't think that's what the story is trying to do. So I've said it before, film is very interpretive, and we all get something different out of film. You can have 10 people watch a movie, and 9 of the 10 see the movie one way, and then that 10th person gets something entirely different out of the film, and that's perfectly fine. That's the way he interpreted the film. For me personally, I don't have a problem with the reveal not being Bud. The reveal of Leatherface not being Bud, but being Jackson. I don't have a problem with that. And the reason I don't have a problem with that is because the way I see the story is the writers here and the directors, what they're trying to tell us as the viewers is that anybody can be Leatherface. Like you have people in society that look like they would be a certain type of person, that they would fit a certain type of mold, right? So we visualize people, and we categorize people as certain type A, right? And then this person as type B. So when we're watching Leatherface and we see Bud, he looks like type A. He looks like the type of person that would be Leatherface. But what the writers and directors here are trying to say is that no, it's not always the person that you think would be the obvious person to do certain things. It could be anybody, you know. And if you're brought up in an environment like Jackson is, where you witness horrific things when you're a kid, your parents and your family try to force your hand into killing someone, and then you grow up in this mental ward, and then you lose your best friend who's the only family to you, and then you suffered this horrific injury, and all these events that Jackson suffers in this film leads him into becoming Leatherface. And it's a very, I think, a very raw approach to what makes Leatherface, what makes this type of character, what would lead someone to being that type of a person. Well, a lot of it is the environment that you grow up in, you know, and that has a huge impact on, you know, what comes later with individuals. You know, when you look at like some of the most notorious serial killers in American history, almost all of them without exception had some type of really awful environment that they grew up in, whether it was abuse, verbal abuse, you know, physical abuse, whatever it was. A lot of them, you could just go down the list and see some type of horrific trauma that they saw or experienced growing up, and it led into them being the person that they were down the road. So that's the story that they're trying to tell with Leatherface, is that the environment that Jackson grows up in leads him to becoming this type of a character. And it is, I think, a very real approach to that kind of a story. So to me, I see what the writers were trying to do. I understand the story that they're trying to tell here, and I don't have a problem with it because it's actually a very real story, a very real approach to that type of a character. And I see what they're doing with Bud. You know, like, we as viewers, we see Bud and we think that's the obvious choice because we're categorizing people. We are stereotyping people. And we see Bud as the obvious choice when in all actuality, sometimes monsters are people that don't fit the mold. People that we don't expect to be monsters are the real monsters. You look at Ted Bundy, for example. There's nothing, if you just look at Ted Bundy, there's nothing about him that screams monster, serial killer, someone that gets into abuse and necrophilia and everything that Ted Bundy did. If you just look at a picture of him, he doesn't fit that mold. He doesn't fit that type of a person, that type of a character, and yet he was that person. Jackson doesn't fit that mold. He doesn't look like the type of person that would be a Leatherface, and yet he is. He becomes that Leatherface through the environment that he grows up in. And so with me, I don't have a problem with them having Jackson become Leatherface because I see the story that they're trying to tell. I understand it. I get it. It makes sense because it's a very real approach to that story. So I just wanted to address that and give my thoughts on that because I do think that it's a lot of people misunderstand the movie and they think that it was just a bait and switch type of thing that the directors were trying to do, but it wasn't. The writers and the directors here had a very clear and a very specific story that they're trying to tell, and they were doing something with these characters. It wasn't just a bait and switch type of thing. I think if you look a little deeper at the actual story here, I think it makes a lot more sense. So to me, that's actually a positive here. The writing, the story is actually a positive for me because it's a very real approach to that type of story. It makes sense, it's coherent, and it's believable as well for me. So all of that is a positive for Leatherface. Moving into the negatives now with this movie, there are a few negatives I do still have with this movie. One of them is, once again, we get quite a bit of plot armor and plot conveniences here in the movie that I'm never a fan of. I get that you do need certain things to be in the script in order to get from point A to point B, but I'm always a fan and an advocate of writers that get from point A to point B through logical and reasonable storytelling. Like, you don't have to have plot conveniences always in your script in order to get to where you're trying to go. Think through the scene. Ask yourself the whys, the hows, the reasons why you're getting there, and flush through it a little more. So I'm never really a fan of those type of plot conveniences, and we do get a number of them here. We also get the scene that always makes me laugh when I watch the cops, the officers, that they arrive at this trailer out in the woods, and they think that Ike and Jackson and the runaway kids are all held up in that trailer, and they all start shooting the trailer, starting with the Sheriff Hartman. He shoots that trailer about a dozen times or more, but he's using a revolver, which only has 6 rounds in it. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching, I'm like, how is he still shooting that trailer? Like, he only has 6 shots in his chamber, and yet he's shooting this trailer like a dozen times. That you can say is nitpicking, and it is, but for me, I notice stuff like that when it comes to like firearms and guns, stuff like that. I'm watching to see what kind of gun they're using, how many rounds does it have. Like, I pay attention to that kind of stuff. So to me, that's always a scene that I just kind of laugh at because it doesn't make any sense. But then you have plot conveniences, right? Where characters show up in a place that they shouldn't be because 2 seconds prior there was no sign of them. And yet they just happen to appear in the scene because the script needs them to be there. We get more of that in this movie. I'm never a fan of that. Another thing, Sheriff Hartman in the last act of this movie, he's got Jackson held up in that barn out by the Sawyer's house, and he's gonna try to kill him, right? And he blames Jackson for his daughter's murder, but he didn't blame him 16 years ago. Like, when his daughter was actually murdered, we don't see Hartman blaming Jackson at all, or holding him accountable for his daughter's murder. But now, for some reason, he's just choosing to blame Jackson for his daughter's murder now. It just seemed a little inconsistent there. I also didn't understand why these three friends, Jackson, Lizzie, and Bud, don't just team up and ambush Ike and his girlfriend. Like, they could have easily overpowered those two. Ike's not a big guy. We see Jackson take him later on in the movie when they're meeting up at the car after they escape the mental ward. They could have easily overpowered Ike. Like, Bud himself could have easily just knocked the shit out of Ike. And yet they just stand there because Ike's holding a little knife at them. They're all apparently held captive against their will. It's like, dude, all you got to do is rush him. Like, that's all you have to do is rush him. He can't take all three of you guys. He can't even take one of you. Like, the fact that they didn't even think about just charging him and just teaming up to, take him out. They could have easily done that and then gotten in the car and driven away. They could have avoided that whole situation. But yeah, just minor things like that. There's also the sense of, when I come to a Texas movie, I expect certain things, and I just didn't get the feeling that this was a Texas movie. It felt just like a very dark, a dark type of horror movie, psychological horror movie. It didn't feel like a Texas movie. And that's something I would have liked to have been there. And then it didn't really have it doesn't have high emotional impact for me. It doesn't have high rewatch value to me. It's kind of mildly entertaining. There's a little bit of emotional impact there, but not much. So those would be other factors that kind of play into my overall rating with this movie. For a $500,000 budget, I think it does a good job. I think it tries to maximize its storytelling, maximize its potential. It gets some things right. It gets some things wrong. But yeah, so those are kind of my thoughts, guys, on Leatherface. My overall rating here, I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. I think this is a decent movie. I really do. I don't think this is a bad film. I've heard a lot of people hate this movie, dog on this movie. It seems like there's more people that hate it and don't like it than there are people that like it. I don't think it's a bad film. I really don't. I see their vision. I see the story that they're trying to tell. It does make sense. I do think they're going someplace. They have a clear vision and idea and story in mind that they're trying to tell. I don't think it's a bad movie, but I also can't say that it's a good film either. So I think it's kind of right there in the middle for me. A decent film There's things I do like about it, things that I think it gets right, but I think it also misses on other parts and other issues. So 2.5 stars for me. That's my rating. Overall thoughts for TCM or Leatherface, because this doesn't, it's not Texas Chainsaw Leatherface. It's just Leatherface. So yeah, that's it, guys. That's all I got for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with my rating? What are your thoughts on this movie? Let me know in the comments section. And until next time, kick it and rock on.